glory shone around upon FC Halifax Town. Shaymen!
Welcome back to another episode of the Talking SHAYMEN podcast. It is FC Halifax Town versus Woking this Saturday in the National League. And on tonight's edition, we are going to be previewing our game versus Woking. And I've brought on Mark Francis, who commentates on Woking games. Mark, how are you doing?
Very well, Luke. Very well. Thanks very much for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. For anyone who is watching, if you are watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual platforms, please feel free to get involved with your questions, fire them away. We'd love to read them out. But anyway, we're talking a bit about Woking and this season. A bit of a mixed bag, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a rough roller coaster, really, being a Woking fan this season, and all too similar since they were promoted from the National League South a couple of years ago. It seems to be the electric start Woking make every season of winning their first few games and appearing in the first, second, third positions in the table, and then over Christmas curtailed slightly, particularly after they've had the double-header with local rivals Aldershot Town, and then finish the season strongly, mainly because they haven't got anything to play for, and there's a real sense of freedom amongst the players when it gets to the spring and the early summer. And that's very much been the story of Woking's campaign this time around. They started with Alan Dowson at the helm, who's been in charge, or who was just in charge, shy of 4 years, and the club made the decision, I think, at the beginning of March to sack Alan Dowson, which meant Martin Tyler, of course, Sky Sports commentator, leave as well. But Ian Dyer didn't leave. He was assistant manager alongside Martin Tyler to Alan Dowson. But they kept Ian Dyer on under contract. He was under contract, so there was no point, losing any more money. And he did a really good job for 6 games in charge as caretaker. I think he won 3 of them, drew once and lost twice. In the 2 games he lost 1-0 at Grimsby away, which was a 90th minute winner for the home side, and 3-2 at home to Solihull Moors, the free scorer in Solihull Moors. That's 2 really good sides there, of course, chasing promotion, of course, which Halifax Town fans will know all too about, considering that you're all rivaling for a top 7 finish. But if you're a Halifax Town fan, I'm pretty sure you won't be looking too far over your shoulder, because it looks as though a top 7 is nearly sort of certain. I think it's just like Wrexham, really, that you're hoping you two finish in the top 2 of the playoffs to give yourselves the best opportunity. But as we were just saying off air, that there are so many good clubs that won't get promoted this season. It might not be Halifax, it might not be Wrexham, Chesterfield, Notts County, Grimsby, Boreham Wood, even Solihull, as I just mentioned. But in terms of Woking, it's been a strange old season, as I say, with Alan Dowson leaving. He was, I think, the 3rd longest serving manager of the league at the time, something like that. And, he was a real family man at Woking, really. He loved the community. He did everything he could off the pitch to help benefit the supporters and indeed the club, just running 50 laps, 100 laps, 150 laps around the pitch at Woking, the Laithwaite Community Stadium, just to raise some money for transfers and for other things that you need money for. But, of course, it's been a bit of change over the last 18 months with new investment coming in, and the way Dow's sort of managed that, you could throw a few holes in it, if you like, because, when you get new investment, you expect better expectations, which haven't really come Woking's way. But there was a big change around about this time last year where the club went from part-time to full-time. So there was all going to be change at the club, and maybe it was just a step too far for Dows, but, full credit to what he did at the club. And since then, they've appointed Darren Saal, who was previously at Yeovil Town. Good record there. So, he took the job on. He's contracted until the end of the 2023-24 season. Actually had a stint at Stevenage, who was struggling in League 2. And we're talking about rivals with Woking before this programme with Aldershot. I mean, Woking will love it if Stevenage get relegated, put it that way. And Darren's also been in the Premier League as well with Watford. So he's got plenty of experience, which we'll come to. But a new man in charge for Woking currently has a 100% record to oppose.
Yeah. Do you agree with the managerial change then with Darryl Sarr coming in? It's obviously gone off to a good start, hasn't it, against Boreham Wood this Saturday, when they did actually defeat Boreham Wood, who also playoff chasers, who we were very happy to see the result come in, that Woking had won, and they were 10 men down as well. And to get a result there, it does show character, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Darren Saal got everything he wanted for the first 90 minutes in charge of Woking, bar obviously the obvious with the red card, as you mentioned. Boreham Wood hadn't lost a game at home all season. I think Halifax Town actually have the best home record out of everybody, but Boreham Wood have obviously got plenty of games to catch up on, and they hadn't lost a game all season. I was on commentary last Saturday, and I was speaking to my co-commentator, and there was a really good stat I fired at him it was a question actually initially of who was the last player to score at Boreham Wood to be on the winning team. It was actually Ivan Toney, who's the Brentford striker, and they played each other in pre-season. But going back to your original question, was it the right thing with Alan Dowson? Maybe. you know, sadly, yes. Because the results just weren't good enough. But he's a wonderful guy, Alan Dowson. No doubt won't be short of offers, you know, currently, or he may be just holding out to the summer perhaps. But there'll be plenty of clubs in for him, particularly, you know, top end National League South clubs that want to have a repeat of what he did with Woking. So it probably was the right decision. He'd been there, you know, 4 years is a long time in management, don't forget, at any level. So it was probably the right decision. And then you look at the list of possible replacements. Darren Sale wouldn't have been the first on my list, but, you know, I spoke to him a couple of times now, including earlier today. Really, really nice guy, really, really approachable, and just says it how it is. It just says it how it is, and he clearly got the response he wanted during training last week, of which he actually pretty much just left to Ian Dyer, who was the assistant manager under Alan Dowson, stepped in as caretaker manager, and now has reverted back to assistant manager. Darren Sale and Ian Dyer have never worked together, and they've only been together 10 days now. And I think Darren is very impressed with the work that Ian has done. He's got all his badges and everything like that. Really, really good football coach, Ian Dyer. And as I say, it's all changed. And given what they did last Saturday, a repeat for Woking, you know, certainly won't go amiss. You know, another side chasing the playoffs. Another side have been, you know, a little bit iffy in the last couple of weeks. If you don't mind me saying, it's not been the best few weeks for Halifax Town in terms of results. A couple of defeats in there on the road. And, you know, it's really the business end of the season for some of these clubs. All the pressure is on Halifax Town on Saturday, as you will well know, and indeed the Halifax Town fans listening in. Woking can go there with absolute freedom of let's go and try and win a football match.
Yeah, there isn't really too much, is there, for Woking to play for now? And one thing that does really concern me and I'm cautious about is that Woking do actually have the 9th best away record in the division, which is pretty impressive when you're looking at their actual current position, being quite low down, lower mid-table position at this moment in time. And it is concerning, and there are players within the Woking squad who could really be dangerous for the Shaymen on Saturday's game. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Woking, as I say, you know, you mentioned there, have a decent record on the road. They always did under Alan Dowson, and clearly they've started pretty well under Darren Sale, and indeed in the few games under Ian Dyer. There's plenty for Halifax to be worried about. You know, Halifax have actually only beaten Woking once in their last 15 years at the Shay. So there's a home record to worry about under the best team with the best home record. I think I was at the Shay a couple of weeks before COVID happened.
When we lost 2-0. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, that was a really good Woking performance that day. I mean, very disappointing from Halifax's perspective. But Woking were really good that day. Really, really good that day. And don't get me wrong, it's a completely different Woking team now. I think the only player that played that game, who will probably play on Saturday, is the goalkeeper. Darren Lofthouse is out injured, and so too is Musa Diarra. I wouldn't expect any of those to play on Saturday, but it's just the goalkeeper. So it is all changed, as we know in the National League. So many squads change every week, let alone every single year. Woking won 4 of their last 5. As I say, there's plenty of problems for Halifax to be fearful of, given their recent form. But, you know, Pete Wild's done such an excellent job at Halifax. Let's not forget, you know, they really will finish in the playoffs, and hopefully they finish the season off in good form. You know, particularly as what you look over in Wales and see what Wrexham are up to. You know, I pretty much see the table as it is, pretty much staying the same. You know, bar the exclusion of Boreham Wood, who I think, you know, they've been really poor the last few weeks. Actually, ironically, since they came out the FA Cup. I think Boreham Wood will break in, whereas pretty much everyone else, you know, Notts County have had a few good weeks as well. And, you know, it's not completely over, but you look at Stockport, probably have won the league by now. Wrexham should be 2nd. Halifax, as long as they don't, you know, mess things up for themselves, should be at 3rd, best 4th. So look, as I say, Woking have got a good record at Halifax Town. They go there with absolutely no fear at all. There's some good players, which we'll come on to, I'm sure, in the next few moments. But you know, it's a pretty good game on paper. You know, as you well know, that Halifax have been in some extraordinary games this season, as were Solihull when Woking played them a fortnight ago. There's been some crazy games for Halifax by the looks of some of the results, particularly in the Cup. What was the result? Was it like 7-4?
Oh, that's 7-4. Yeah, 7-4. Yeah.
You're a free scorer inside. You're very good at the other end in terms of keeping clean sheets. I think you've only conceded 9 at home. But then again, as Boreham Wood had only conceded, I think, 7 at home. And made it 8 after Woking's win last week. So, look, I'm not here to turn around and say to you that Woking are going to stroll up on Saturday, win 3-0, and that's it. Completely changes the table. It's not. You know, Halifax are a massive game for Woking. I think Pete Wild would have certainly done his research on Darren Sale, and to know each other all too well, having been in the league for a couple of years now. And you know what you're going to get from Woking. We're a stubborn side. We're a good defensive side on our day. I think prior to a couple of weeks ago on my stats somewhere, I think of the 19 games Woking have lost this season, I think 14 of them have only been by a goal. So Woking don't ever really get hammered when they do lose. We played 37 games this season, won 14, lost 19, and only drawn, I think, 4. So you're either going to get Halifax 3-0 or Woking 3-0 by the sound of it. But, it should be a great game, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. You're thinking of a statistic here, though, about Davil Saar. Now, when he was the Yeovil manager very early on in the season, I think Halifax's teams has developed over the course of the season since that Yeovil game. But we were actually defeated by Yeovil at losing 1-0. Now, that's a stat where probably Davil Saar himself will be wanting to come to the Shaymen, probably getting something off the Shaymen. He probably knows some weaknesses of ours that he can exploit when you're thinking of that reverse fixture. Is that a positive for you?
Yeah, I think so. It was an awful long time ago since Woking hosted Halifax, which was a game I actually missed. I think it was the second game of the season when the Shaymen turned up at the Lowthwaite Community Stadium and won by 3-2. It's a long time ago. And again, games in sort of August and September, you don't really read into because most of the big clubs are yet to really find their feet. Whereas, Woking can be in second, third gear by the end of September and all the big teams come back at them. So, yeah, Darren Saar will know all too well about Halifax Town. He mentioned to me earlier, I should say, that he's watched plenty of videos, plenty of highlights of Halifax. That's, the nature of the beast nowadays in 2022. You can do that. It's all out there on YouTube or the club's websites. You can find out exactly what you want. It's interesting as well. I think Darren Saar used to have a couple of Halifax players. I think, is it Matty Warburton?
Yeah,
He was at Yeovil, He was at Yeovil last year on loan. So there's one player. I mean, everyone knows about the confidence and the technique of Billy Waters, or the talent, I should say, of Billy Waters. 17 goals this season. I think there's only 3 players better off than him. He had a great start to the campaign. He hasn't been the most prolific recently, but still, he's still firing in goals, isn't he? What was it? 8 goals in 10 right at the start of the campaign. So he's definitely a man to fear.
He had a little run going where he kept scoring every consecutive home games. I think he scored 9 consecutive home games at home. But when you do say that about Billy Waters dropping off slightly, you should have seen him on Saturday's game against Wheelstone. I don't know if you've seen, but it were 0-0 at half time, as it usually is with the Shay. As I don't know if you know, but the first half we're usually not going towards when we're going towards the goal, we're not going to the fans. So there isn't really anyone to edge the team on, where the second half we're by the south stands behind the goal when we're trying to travel that way. And Billy Waters came on the pitch and basically took apart Wheelstone with 2 very, very good goals. So, yeah, Billy Waters is somebody that if I was a Woking fan, I would be a little fearful of. But, yeah, Woking, when you're talking a bit about Woking and you're talking about them, I know you said early on in the podcast, you said about them dropping off after a few games into the season. An example of that was when Halifax and Woking were toe-to-toe at the top of the table up until about Christmas time, and there were the likes of Solihull and I think Bromley were up there too. And many of them sides did start to drop off, like your Solihull's, like your Bromleys, like your Wokings. And does that seem to be quite a consecutive and consistent problem for Woking throughout every single season?
Yeah, very much so, particularly in recent years, because, as I mentioned earlier, Woking have only just become full-time, were part-time for a few years, particularly during their relegation season. So they're far more likely to start the season off very well. And when fitness comes into the frame, the better sides, if you like, with bigger squads and fitter squads tend to hit top gear by the November, December part of the season. As you mentioned there, it seems ridiculous to think that Woking and Halifax were towards the summit. Well, obviously not from a Halifax perspective, for a Woking perspective. But, 6 months ago, Woking were in a nice position at the start of the season pretty well with a few decent results. And then, far more disappointingly dropped off and at one stage were hovering above the relegation zone. Those fears have very much dissolved in recent weeks. Aldershot could be in some trouble now, which would be good news for some Woking fans. As much as we love the derby, we don't really like it because Aldershot always seem to beat us. So at the other end of the table, it's very interesting from a Kings Lynn perspective. Of course, beaten Halifax, I think, by a couple of goals to 0 a few weeks ago. Woking have got Kings Lynn in 2 weeks' time. May even let Kings Lynn win if it gets more interesting. But look, going back to your original question with Woking, it just seems to be a consistent thing now in recent years where they start really well, disappoint over Christmas, and then there's nothing left to play for by February, particularly if you're at the 3 domestic competitions, which hopefully may change in the next 12 months. As I say, with this new investment, which all Woking fans are waiting for, with a new manager now, has new ideas. He was just saying to me earlier on, Darren Saar, that with the club going forward, he's going to be constantly knocking on the doors of the owners saying, I want more money, I want to improve the team, which is exactly what Pete Wilde has done at Halifax, and look at the results that's come his way, So Look, it literally is a money game, and that's the sadness about it. You see it in the top division with Manchester City and Liverpool. You see it in the eighth tier of football. Whoever has the most amount of money tends to do the better, and it's a clear reflection in our league of Stockport injecting a lorry load of cash into Dave Chandler's new ideas and creative ideas into the team, and it certainly works well for him. And indeed, with the likes of with Wrexham, signing a League One striker, it's just ridiculous. How can teams like Woking cope with that? So Woking always outperform themselves, despite the fact the last 2-3 months have been pretty much, all Woking fans want to see is a good performance and see their team try. If they lose the game like they did against Solihull, it doesn't matter. They've given their all. They've lost the game to a better team. But when they put more money into the side and add a little bit more quality, particularly in certain areas of the pitch, which we'll come to, they can be a decent side. And as we were saying before off air, that Woking are one of the top National League or top non-league teams because of how many ex-Football League teams are actually in the division.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that. I remember going to Notts County earlier in the season, just thinking, Woking are playing Notts County in the league? It's just crazy, isn't it?
They probably are Woking, I would say, probably the biggest non-league side that have never reached the EFL, because you're thinking of the likes of Yeovil, Halifax, talking surrounding probably the same level of the fan base, the history. It's quite similar to Woking, apart from Woking obviously not reaching the Football League. But it is becoming a problem, isn't it, in this division where they are the so-called top six who are splashing all the money, especially the likes of Stockport and Wrexham. Then you've got a few smaller clubs like your Bournemouth who are also splashing quite a lot of cash about as well. And it's becoming a problem for a lot of clubs in this division and sides like yourselves who are trying to reach the Football League for the first time in a row to try get into the Football League. Like ourselves, we feel that we're certainly big enough based on our history to reach the Football League. So we're the likes of Aldershots and your Yeovils and your Torquays. But it is so hard, and we've seen that with Torquay in the previous season, how they didn't manage to get up when it was probably their so-called best chance of reaching the Football League. And it is becoming a huge problem for sides like your Halifaxes and Torquays to try reach the Football League. But there always seems to be a shock, and especially the likes of last season with Sutton going up, the previous season, likes of Barrows and your Harrogates going up. Could it possibly be in the upcoming years Woking's turn to reach the Football League?
It's certainly not past them. You made some very good points there, Luke, with with Torquay and Yeovil, some big sides that have plummeted down the divisions. And the stature of Woking in the non-league, and maybe it is their turn in the next decade or so. It all just depends on what money goes into the club, what players want to play for Woking, and really what the plan is. When Darren Searle will be interviewing players in the summer, or may have started already, of course, there'll be many free agents about who are out of contracts in the summer. It's really selling the best of Woking, which Alan Dowson tried so hard to do for nearly 4 years, is to bring quality players into the team and really sell them a project. I guess the main word there being project. That Woking aren't just here to finish mid-table. They're not here just to fight off relegation or just to have a little sniff at the playoffs. They're here to win, and they're here to hopefully in the future maybe progress into League Two. How far away that is, I have no idea, because it's such a hard league to go out. And really, it's such a shame that, as I said earlier, that Wrexham, Halifax, Chesterfield, Solihull Moors, only one of them is getting promoted, along with Stockport, which is just such a shame for all the other clubs who are thinking, oh, God, I've got to go back to Wrexham and lose 5-0 next year sort of thing. Regardless, it's competition at the end of the day. But when you see 4 clubs go up from League Two into League One, you're thinking, surely we can stretch to 3 in the National League. So, look, in the next 10 years, Woking have really got to start pushing for a playoff finish, let alone actually get promoted. Let's think about that first. Woking have got to finish in the top half, let alone in the playoff positions, and then actually win a playoff final or win the league. As I say, they always start the season well. They really just need to continue that. How they do that, I don't know. But they just need a better quality of player. Woking have got some very good players. But in the last few years, they seem to have always struggled in front of goal. Tabon Campbell, prime example, 13 goals this season for Woking, then got sold. Only got a good 6 months out of him. Ini Effiong can be a little bit hit and miss. 1 week he's scoring a really good brace. He scored a couple of goals against Southend in a defeat. He scored a couple of goals in another game, which I can't recall off the top of my head. He's always banged there, but Effiong will always do something you think, how has he missed from 3 yards? Me and you can score from 3 yards sometimes. Max Kretschmar, complete opposite. Max Kretschmar, you know exactly what you're going to get from him. Gives him 110%, and his work rate is phenomenal. Always reliable from the spot. Of course, scoring on Saturday. I hesitated there. So I think he's only missed 1 Woking penalty, and I think that struck the woodwork. I'm sure he heard me saying that. He'd probably give me a slap because his record has been tremendous.
Yeah.
And he's really, really been suited by full-time football. He's such a better player. Now he's a much fitter player. And you can see the fans' reaction to really his work rate and his ethic towards the team. And again, they got good players. Musa Diarra, who won't be playing on Saturday, who should be out with a hamstring injury. Not too sure how long he's out for. 6'7" defender, real leader in the Woking back line. They've got good fullbacks. Josh Casey, the club captain, Karen Lofthouse, who's out at the minute, and they've got a real workhouse in midfield in Solomon Wabuke and Rowan Ince, who was sent off on Saturday, so you won't be seeing Ince. So maybe it is the right time for Halifax to play Woking, because they are missing 2 or 3 of their starting 11. And you just don't really know what Woking you're going to come up against. They are giving their all at the minute, as I say, with very little to play for, but they are looking to impress their new manager. And maybe that is their aims and objectives for between now and the end of the season, because regardless whether they want to play for Woking next season, they're going to be wanting to play somewhere. So they're going to want to impress not only the new manager, but maybe anyone else looking on. So that's why I say it's going to be a tough game for Halifax. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to turn around and say Woking are going to turn up and win or anything, but it will be a competitive game. And, with some of the stats I've said today of how they don't normally get, smashed for 6. This is when you messaged me Saturday night and Woking have lost 5-0 or something like that. But they do keep their wits about the Woking. They are very disciplined, bar a few dodgy red cards. Rowan Ince was only sent off because he's committed to his challenges. It was a silly red card when you look at it. He shouldn't have been booked for the first one. The second one probably is a yellow, given that you're on a yellow. But he's committed and he's fighting for the shirt. And where he may be next season, I don't know. There have been rumours about his exit. But many Woking fans will want to see him in a Woking red and white shirt next season, because he has been fantastic this campaign. And with better players around him, with a full number 9, with a couple of good wingers, perhaps, Tariq Johnson, another name I should just very quickly add, has very much been a man in form the last few weeks. He's been played about a bit, Tariq Johnson. I do feel for him, really. He's been played in a number of positions, or a number of different systems, I probably should say. Under Alan Dowson, it was very much 3 at the back, so he was sometimes playing left wing back. Tariq Johnson's a left winger. He doesn't want to be doing too much on the defensive side of things. So, as I say, going into the summer, Woking will want to look to add quality in positions. A few names in defence will be obvious. It just depends on the movement, really. Who comes, who goes. It'll be a fascinating summer for Woking. They've got 8 games to play, including on Saturday, whereas Halifax, of course, it'll be all change whether they go up or down. And do you know what? They've really got a squad to do so. We mentioned Billy Waters, Matty Warburton earlier on. They've got as good a chance as any, but it's all about the form you go into the playoffs. Sometimes they say form goes out the window when you're in the playoffs. Second again up against 7th. Sometimes it's 7th that goes up and second bottle it. But you just look at the way that Wrexham are playing at the minute. They are thumping teams. They really are.
They've really started to pull that consistency together and get that momentum towards the end of the season. Now, I want to talk a bit about this derby, Aldershot versus Woking. Now, we were talking a bit about this off air, and it is quite historic, isn't it? And I think that's probably one game. I believe you've played. Yeah, you have played Aldershot twice. That is one thing this season that probably Woking fans and Aldershot fans always look forward to, when the two teams collide in the league, as it's usually a big game for you. How important is that derby for you, and how big is it?
Oh, it's absolutely massive, Luke, to be honest. Prior to, I think, Weymouth coming up, it's always been Woking Aldershot Boxing Day, New Year's Day. I think when Weymouth came up, it meant that Weymouth played either Torquay or Yeovil or someone over there, and it meant Aldershot played Eastleigh, which meant Woking played Sutton. So that was last year. Thankfully, Sutton moved on, and we had Aldershot back to our regular term date. It's always the, as I say, I'm an Arsenal fan. I look for Tottenham in the calendar every single season. It's the same as a Woking fan. You look for the Aldershot Town games, as do all the Woking fans and Aldershot Town fans, particularly the Aldershot Town fans, because they have such a good record against Woking. I think they've only lost 3 times, or I won't guess the stat, but it's something ridiculous. Woking never beat Aldershot. It's crazy. You look at the league table at the minute, Woking clearly the better team on form, and indeed the league table. Still, they picked up just a 1 point out of a possible 6 this term. They were winning by 2-1 on New Year's Day, or I think it was the day after New Year's Day on the Sunday, with a minute to go, and they lost the game 3-2. And I know Josh Casey, the club captain, spoke to me after, and I saw him out in Woking actually. He just said, when it got to full time, he was in the changing rooms. They said, look, who does this matter to anyone? Who cares, sort of thing. Whereas Aldershot, the moment they got that equaliser, they were only going to win that game. They were not going to draw that game. Look, it's a massive rivalry. I don't want to completely oversell it, because there are brilliant rivalries in this division, but Woking Aldershot has to be bang right up there. It really is. It's been going on for 25, 30 years since Aldershot Town reformed. Of course, they folded in the Football League some 30 years ago, I think it was. They did have a spell as Aldershot Town in the Football League, but have obviously come back down. And they could get relegated as well. Let's not forget this season. I'll be highly surprised. I mean, the gap's only 3 points, and they have got a couple of games in hand. But it's like Everton in the Premier League. They've still got to win those games. They've still got to get something from those games. They've got to get a point somewhere, here, there, and everywhere. So yeah. Look, it's a massive game every single season. It's not really a very nice game for a Woking fan to watch. The record that Aldershot have, particularly as in the last few years, a couple of Woking players have moved on and landed at Aldershot. I mean, Scott Rendell will be the obvious name. He had a massive injury in a Woking shirt right at the start of the season, some 6-7 years ago. Missed the entire season. Woking, I think, raised some funds to help support him through his injury, and come the summer he moved on to Aldershot. So it's sort of everything's thrown back in your face. I mean, I could just see your facial reaction there. It's not really very nice, but it is what it is. As I say, it's always a game you look out for, and it's always a game you sort of shut your eyes for a Woking fan watching on, because it's usually Aldershot Town the ascendancy, and usually Aldershot Town collecting the points. So look, thankfully for us, that game is done and dusted for another 8 months or so. But yeah, I mean, whether Aldershot Town stay in the league this year, who knows? I mean, Woking do have another rivalry with Stevenage, and they are really struggling. Actually, funny enough, the other day, many Woking fans did the double. They went to the home of Stevenage Stadium, I can't remember off the top of my head, and went to go watch Oldham play Stevenage, which was 22nd against 23rd in that league, or 21st, 22nd. It was basically the bottom two, bar Scunthorpe. Went and had the trip there. Oldham beat Stevenage by a goal to 0, and then rocked up at Boreham Wood. So they had 2 good results on Saturday. So yeah, that's the rivalry. That's the way to sell it. It's a really good tie every single year. I'm surprised it doesn't get more coverage. To be honest.
Yeah, BT Sport would be good. I don't know though, when you're thinking about, because it probably lower attendances, possibly away attendances. I don't know, I think for Woking and Aldershot fans, I'd probably be wanting to go no matter what if it was on BT. And yeah, when you are talking about Stevenage going down, we are the one club that the northern clubs are like saying, no, please don't be Stevenage. We'd love to see a side like Oldham get relegated. Now I want to talk a bit about the reverse fixture and move on to tactics, etc. Now, we said off air that you didn't actually go to the game, neither did I. I don't know if you've seen highlights. What were your thoughts on the game?
I can't give you too many thoughts, as I say, because I wasn't there. But one thing I do seem to remember from what people I know who did go was that basically Halifax just took their chances. Again, I can't bring too much of the game into it because it was a long time ago and I wasn't there. But it seemed to me that they kicked on in the second half, started very well. And if memory serves me correctly, they may have scored very early on in the second half. What the score was at the time, I think they might have put them 2-1 up. But they took their chances, clearly. I mean, Woking had their first scorer, I think it was Jordan Maguire-Drew, who has since moved on. Their second goal scorer was George Oakley, who since broke his leg, and he's been missing virtually the whole season. So, yeah, again, Halifax you'll try and do your homework and you'll think, what was the Woking team that day? But many things have changed since August. I'm sure they have from a Halifax Town perspective. So again, it's one of those where, form goes out the window from recent games. You've got to think against Halifax against Woking. What's Woking like at Halifax? And in recent years, it's been pretty good. I think you guys beat us by a goal to 0 last term. Did Jake Hyde score?
Behind closed door. Yeah, and Jake Hyde scored because
I didn't go to that game either. But I do come to the show, I promise you. It's just how the calendar maps out.
COVID. I think we had a Solihull fan on last time, and apparently I don't think commentators were actually allowed from opposition clubs.
Right, it was very, very difficult last year.
Because of COVID. Let's talk a bit about tactics. You've mentioned a few of the star men. I'm not going to pronounce his name. I think you pronounced it better. Pardon?
Kretschmar.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's been quite a star man this season for you. And there's also Innie Effingham, who's been around at this level for a very long time. Been quite inconsistent though. When he was at Dover, I think he was highly rated by Dover fans, went to Notts and didn't particularly get into the team. And ever since he's come to Woking, it seems to me like he has found his feet. And I think one other problem for Woking this season is the loss of Tavon Campbell. Now, I remember when he was at us, I don't think he'll mind me saying this if he does watch, but Tavon Campbell, when he was horrendous. He was a horrendous for us, to be honest, quite terrible. You felt he was quite out of his depth. And he went to Woking this season. And
I bet you couldn't believe it.
Pardon?
I bet you couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe how well he'd actually done, and it was scoring. He did score that one really good goal against Notts County from outside the box last season. But that was literally it. And I think a lot of fans thought it was useless. But ever since he's gone to, well, when he was previously at Woking for half a season, he did seem to impress, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he highlighted it there. He just managed the one goal for Halifax in I think just over a dozen appearances. He scored more goals for Woking in the first half of the season than he did for the rest of his football career, which goes to show that the impact he had at Woking under Alan Dowson. And he really was a goal merchant. Particularly from close range. You really want a man in the right position, and he was always that. But sadly, he's no longer with us. We've got to think about players that are with us. You mentioned Uni Effiong, who can be that kind of frustrating striker at times. When he is scoring, he's scoring plenty. Most of his goals seem to come in blocks, as you say with Billy Waters. When he starts scoring, it doesn't really tend to stop. But he got a couple of goals against Solihull, which I think ended a run of 6 or 7 without a goal. Kretschmer, on the other hand, has had his fair share of injuries this season. He's Mr. Reliable from the spot, but yeah, he has struggled with a couple of niggles here and there. He did have a hamstring problem. I think just over the new year, I think it was. But 11 goals for him as well. So 24 goals between them, plus various assists. They do get the odd goal from midfield as well, Woking. I mean, Tyreek Johnson, but been waiting a long time for him to score his first goal in his second spell as a Woking player. And indeed, he got that not too long ago. So, yeah, look, if the goals are going to come for Woking, they're going to probably come from those two players. As I say, Mac will be Mr. Reliable from the spot. But, don't throw another set piece away from him. 20 odd yards out of the box, 25 yards out. He'll be hovering over that free kick. Don't get me wrong. And Effiong, as I say, when he's up for it, he really is up for it.
Yeah, he's a big target man, isn't he? I remember him when he was at Dover. He were very dangerous. And
he's a nightmare for defenders to play with sometimes. I mean, the best way Halifax can deal with him is probably just to double up on him. Because that way you give him, you take out his best asset, which is holding the ball up and indeed in the air. If you're doubling up on him, he's not going to get a sniff. He's not going to get any space. Sometimes his first touch lets him down. Look, if Woking are going to score, it's usually between those two. They don't lack for goals at all. They've scored plenty of goals this season, particularly when you look at the first half of the campaign when Tamil Campbell was smashing them every week. It seemed like Woking were one of the top scorers of the division.
It looked like they could possibly reach the playoffs. Now, I'm going to talk a bit about how Woking will approach this game going into Saturday. If you were a Woking fan, how would you expect them to approach this game? I'd possibly think that they'd probably sit back and possibly go on the counter-attack. How do you think they'll line up?
As I say, it's all changed really under Darren Searle. If you were asking me about a month ago, I could tell you exactly how we're setting up because I know how Alan Dowson plays football, whereas Darren Searle, it's all very, very new. Woking have played 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 a lot this term, particularly 3-5-2, I should say. Whereas under Darren Searle last week, they were very much a standard classic of 4-4-2, really, where they actually play with fullbacks, they actually play with natural wingers, and they play with two up top. So I guess he won't really want to change too much of a winning team. He'll obviously be enforced to a couple of changes. Indeed, one in midfield with Rowan Intu is suspended. So Solomon Wabuke and Intu and Wabuke have been magnificent when they've been together this season. Sadly, they both had COVID, so they were in and out of the team, and they both, again, had their fair share of injuries. But when those two have been together, they have been rock solid. They've been brilliant. They really have got two engines on them. They really do kick in the turbo in the centre half. They've got great fitness levels. And Wabuke probably is one of those players that covers every single blade of grass, whereas Ince is that calm sort of luxury player in midfield. I'd go as far as saying he's sort of a non-league Rolls Royce. I'm not going to say he's any sort of Declan Rice or anything.
I don't think he probably isn't, but is he related to Tommins?
Rowan, I don't think there's any relation. No. I'm guessing, but I'm pretty sure I would know by now. I think he's... I'm pretty sure there isn't. Ince is from, is it Montserrat?
Cause he's from the same one as Jamie Allen, who's also a player at us, and I know they both go on international duty. Yeah. Talking a bit about attendance as expected, now Woking are quite well supported away from home. How many would you probably expect from Woking on Saturday?
It's a long way to go for Woking, but then again, what's not to like? It's a new team, it's a new manager to follow. What's wrong with the day out up in Halifax Town? So, there won't be the biggest numbers there for Woking, don't get me wrong. When you saw at the start of the season, Woking always attract very good numbers at home. They attract good numbers on the road when it's pretty close to home. But a Saturday afternoon, it's a crazy weekend of sport, as you've probably seen with everything going on. As I said off air that I can't go, it's Grand National weekend. That's one example. But Woking will have a fair share of fans there. There'll be good noise for the Woking fans that are there, I promise you that, hopefully. I'll let you down there. But last week, at Boreham Wood, it was a very low atmosphere. I think there were 901 people exactly there. and really make a case for being as many Boreham Wood fans as there were Woking fans. I mean, that's not the hardest thing to do in the world, is it? But
No.
Woking have got good support on the road. It's a long, long way to go. Don't get me wrong, but with a new project, new manager, why not?
If I was a Woking fan, this is just based on statistics that I've seen online. Probably about 120, 130. Yeah. I know Wealdstone brought quite similar to that, and they're very well supported away from home. Who else? Torquay were very well supported also.
Yeah, very well supported, yeah.
They brought 200 or so to us. But yeah, Woking, I'm sure they'll come in numbers, and like the previous two, like Torquay and Wealdstone did, I'm sure they'll make a lot of noise too. So yeah, if there are any Woking fans watching this afterwards or live now, there's places for you to go. There's the Peace Hall, there's the club do loads of catering, etc. There's the Royal Oak, there's the Courtyard pub, the Three Pigeons, which is very popular. I know you've got to go, so I'll just quickly ask for your score prediction.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Look, it's going to be a close game. I think Halifax will win the game. Yeah, will win the game if I can get my words out. They will win the game, but it won't be easy for them. I expect Woking will start the game the better. Maybe put some nerves on Pete Wild's side because they're the side that have got to get the 3 points at the end of the game. But I think Woking will score, but I think Halifax will just edge it. They've not been their best in the last few weeks. They will need to respond, and it's probably about time they do respond, given what the clubs around them in the table are doing. I don't see them falling away or anything like that, but, a couple of disappointing results, particularly when the other clubs have been doing so well, as I say, you can't let them down. Yeah, well, exactly. I think you've lost both games to Wrexham this season, so going into the playoffs, you're going to want to be at the top of your form.
Yeah, we really don't want Wrexham away. And Woking's not going to be easy at all. I think we got a good point against Solihull on Tuesday night at home, the first draw at the Shay this season. We defeated Wealdstone on Saturday, but previous to that, we lost the past 2 games at Wrexham, which I never want to go to the racecourse again after witnessing that game. But it is going to be a tough game. It is going to be a tough game on Saturday for us. I think it will be low scoring. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Halifax Town win. I think Woking will be the better team in the first 20 minutes or so, which usually does happen at the Shay this season. But I'm sure for Halifax fans watching, we can get the win. And good luck to all the Woking fans coming this Saturday. Finally, you haven't actually said yet, what is your score prediction?
Now you've gone with a Halifax win, I'm going to make things interesting. I'll go 2-1 Woking. Why not? They've got nothing to lose. They're under a new manager. All the pressure's on the home side. I've got a small inkling that Halifax will win, but let's make it interesting. I'll go 2-1 Woking.
Mark, I really do appreciate you coming on the channel. And for any Halifax fans watching this Saturday, I believe Woking will be doing commentary. Am I correct in that?
You are correct, yes. Live on BBC Radio, sorry.
Woking will be doing commentary, and is also the official club's commentary too. Thank you to everyone that's joined us tonight, and good luck on Saturday, but not too much.
Glory shone around upon FC Halifax Town.